Shall we be seated, please? Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellency.
Okay. It's day 2 of the 3rd Ministerial Nigeria. My name is Mitaire Ikben, and on behalf of the outside broadcast crew of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network, I welcome you from the State House Conference Center in the Presidential Villa, Abuja, the Nigerian capital. The theme of the retreat is Enhance It, which form spans who comprise the President and his cabinet ministers, head of the Civil Service of the Federation, leadership of the National Assembly, permanent secretaries, heads of anti-corruption agencies such as the AFCC and ICPC, and even qualitative international participation. Immediate past President of Kenya, Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, and British High Commissioner to Day 1, and agenda run-through for Day 2 by Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa.
Tarawa and Plateau State, members of the Federal Executive Council, the Chief of Staff and the Head of Service of the Federation, Your Excellency ASUU Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the presidential aspirant of the APC, having a candidate of the APC, senior permanent secretaries, senior gentlemen of the press. Good morning and welcome. Yesterday's program began with objectives and context setting, in which I provided a brief history of our journey to the 3rd year ministerial performance and the involvement of the ministries in the process of performance management and implementation of the 9 priority areas. I also mentioned that an executive order on improving performance management, coordination and implementation of presidential priorities of the federal government of Nigeria has been developed and will be formally signed by His Excellency, Mr. President, at this retreat. Support in this regard. I concluded with a review of the expectations and agenda for the retreat. During the technical sessions, knowing that the outcome of the retreat is expected to pave the way for ramping up the delivery of the 9 priority areas as the administration wind down. We received words of goodwill from the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. They both expressed the 9th Assembly's desire to work closely with the government to ensure that the appropriation bill allows the administration to finish strong. High Excellency, today we receive that of ASUU Ahmed Bola Tinubu. In his address, President Muhammadu Buhari welcomed us all to the retreat and highlighted the importance of this ministerial retreat as an opportunity to consolidate the gains of previous retreats. Mr. President underscored the importance of critical infrastructure in economic development. Legacy. He gave examples of high-impact projects across the country in infrastructure, aviation, health, and technology sectors. The President reiterated the importance of institutionalizing priorities. The Vice President, in his reflection speech, categorized the achievements of the Buhari administration into 4 broad areas through the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. He also spoke of the different achievements and the National Mass Metering Program. The immediate past president of Kenya, and the difficulties of agencies working together to achieve a common developmental purpose. He pointed out that the development challenges are the same in all African countries, and there is also a challenge of solving problems with limited resources within a limited time frame. The need to focus on critical issues that would impact efficient service delivery and lay a foundation and transition planning are important for the continuity of government in all African countries, and noted the role those development efforts. We also had the first 4 panel discussions on accelerating delivery and ensuring impact yesterday, and 4. Discussions included the ministers of the main contributing ministries and dignitaries, providing opportunities to focus on key achievements, status of projects, and plans to accelerate delivery to ensure the completion of most of the project. The major takeaways from the panel discussions are as follows. The discussions on diversification of challenges with the Forex regime. The second panel focused on sustaining food production and addressing which, ladies and gentlemen, we will begin after we've received the goodwill message of ASUU with panel discussions on priority number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. The last panel discussion for the day will be fostering executive legislature relationships and enhancing opportunities by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning on the implementation of the National Development Plan. Following that, the child security for the development of the Nigerian state. Thereafter, I will be back again to provide the synthesis of our discussions over the last 2 days, in line with Mr. President's desire to institutionalize the entire process. He will sign an executive order before delivering the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Like the SDO said, we will followed the news. You will know that he was in Kaduna yesterday meeting with Arewa leaders and elders, but he's here today, and within 3 to 5 minutes he's going to give us his goodwill message. So I get to you.
Excellency President, the Vice President, ASUU, Your Excellencies, the governors here present, the Secretary to the Government of the Federal, I'm a candidate, not an aspirant. Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mrs. Folashade, distinguished senators and House of Representatives members, honorable distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to make a goodwill message. Thank you, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, and may I say thank you on behalf of all Nigerians to your entire administration, represented by all that are present here today. We supported you for your first day in office. I will remain your friend and ally even after your final. I know the vision you are putting on. I know the level of patriotic dedication with which you have and listening critically to the laundry list of we definitely realize the depth of commitment that every one of you has made to this country. You have kept faith. May I say this to you and to the entire team. No one can take those achievements away from you. Yet, it is to write his own story. He would rather accomplish things for good of all than to focus attention on himself or herself. His labor and achievements may go unappreciated for a moment and cannot last. In due course, the full extent of this administration and the contribution will become known and understand very well. You see, history as a way of clearing the mist so that the effective assessment of your time in office and the national contribution you all have made. This administration inherited a national condition steeped in difficulty and lacked the will to tackle serious problems ranging from insecurity to corruption. As if that was unprecedented in the compounded post. COVID attacked both global health and the global economy. Throughout most of your tenure, oil prices waned and ebbed. The Ukrainian crisis and other conflicts, coupled with severe weather events in many nations, that supply chain of critical items, especially food. You need more than just storms. Despite it all, you made historic progress. During this retreat of your 9-point agenda, you will discuss things in great detail, yet permit me to highlight a few points to get the recent past. Upon entering office, you faced a situation where territory, proclaiming an illegal state within our legitimate state. Because of your collective, their boast of conquest are no longer hard. You put us on the road to defeating this menace. But the great them are utterly removed from face of our nation. The progress we made in increasing farm productivity while improving the condition of the average farmer were important policy interventions, helping the nation overcome the global supply chain disruption. Despite financial headwind, embarked on an unparalleled expansion of the national infrastructure. Maybe slow, amidst the increased investors, Mr. President and members of the administration, may I state the following. If elected, I will work in the spirit of cordial unity, national purpose of your government. Most importantly, that protect and prosper the Nigerian people, because our guiding principle will be to provide land. Consider these three promises to be a positive outgrowth experience. I wish you a success, that your efforts will continue to bear fruit for our nation and its future. God bless Nigeria. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, I don't know whether it was a keynote speech or a good message, sir. It sounded like both. Thank you. Now we will please ask our friends, the media people, to take their leave, but to be mindful that by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, their presence will be required, because that is when the SGF will come up to summarize proceedings of the 2 days and to take us into the next steps. After that, Mr. President will sign an executive order, and then he will give the closing remarks about 4:30. So please, when the media leaves now, be mindful that sometime about 3:30 p.m., you are required to be back. Thank you very much. So the first business of the day, taking stock that we started yesterday, continues.
One of the high points of today's session of activities of this presidential retreat will be the signing of an executive order on improving performance management, coordination, and implementation of presidential priorities of the federal government of Nigeria, which has been developed. This executive order will be formally signed by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari much later today. The technical sessions will continue for the ministers to take stock of their activities. For now, we'll take a break from this live telecast. On behalf of the outside broadcast crew, my name is Mitaire Ikwen, now handing over to our studios for a continuation of our program schedule. Thank you.
Doctors that are not married and they're even moving.
Well, there's a myriad of things. I think first of all, we have to go back to very well good for teaching skills. Your students are speaking from heart for this Nigeria constitution.
And I said, let's pick them up, let's take them back to Nigeria, and let's teach them a different kind of job.
Hello, it's the show again for the women and of course for the entire Nigerians. A show that showcases women from every walks of life doing very exceptional things and of course setting them up as role models. We don't know that in the course of growth, they may not have been that perfect, but how to circumvent every stumbling block, turning it into stepping stone is very important to us. Today we are going to be showcasing another personality who is making marks where it should be. Someone who ordinarily should be running away from certain things, but she says no. I'm not just going to peruse, I'm going to live inside of it. Train of a woman, and of course the training nation. Who is my guest? I'll leave you guessing when I return. Teacher is the woman, and I am Elizabeth Abaya. I told you my guest is someone who is buried in between pages of books. You get to find out why. She is seated here. She's pioneered a lot of things from the Federal University of Technology right up to the apex of the library, where she is engineering certain things. It's 1 year after she took over. We intend to find out what she's been doing and how she got there, and of course the totality of who she is. But join me, welcome Professor Chinwe Veronica Ananobi. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, my dear.
All right, so I watched out for you the day you assumed office, and I told myself I'm going to keep my eyes open and find out what will happen. I remember a lot of promises you made us. We'll get back to that, but I'd like to know. I am scared of reading too much. Sometimes I feel my head is too small. But engineer that way.
In print and in electronic, they normally send CDs. So that from that time, it was easy for us to get those ones in CD and begin to put them in the repository of design, which I called photo space. In 2016, 17, there was open educational resources database in photo.
Because when you assumed office about a year ago, you said that you were going to improve the reading culture of Nigerians, and you paid particular, homage to the schools, be it in FCT or outside of FCT.
Nigeria is a very populous country and a very large area-wise, but we have started something. We saw that in as much as we read, we've been going to correctional centers to give them, to IDPs, we've been going to give them, but we saw that we cannot succeed alone. So what stakeholders who are interested in reading or improving reading culture? And that is why we zeroed in, we started writing letters to, because there are reading clubs that are trying to encourage people to read and also reading themselves. There is network of reading club. We started discussing with them. In fact, we are signing a memorandum so that if we are doing it, they can go to nook and crannies and plant reading clubs. Through the National Library, we are planting also in our branches all over the Federation, and we are also partnering with Reading Association of Nigeria. We are also partnering with this. There is a UNICEF project meant to read. We have zeroed this because we may be doing all these things in the capital, state capitals, forgetting that Nigeria is not only about the state capital. This year, what we are doing is to take the readership campaign to the hinterland, where we can meet some out of school children. If you are the person that travels to the village, where you see children during school days, we mill around,
then we give them literature books or pictorials.
Yes,
easy for beginners.
Yes.
Now, in doing this thing, I observed something. Ones which a lot of times are boxed within an apartment. There is an absence of library most times. Students are not that much encouraged. Can you, in your capacity, try to influence schools, maybe using the ministries like you already started, to begin to pay attention to library?
What my heads of branches all over the Federation, what they are doing is that this library we are going to start from ensuring that they have library, at least for the school. Importantly, when my children went to school, they went to university staff schools. They have what you call book boxes or book library in the classroom, so that if a child can just out of carelessness just peruse a book and they get interested and they will start reading. So what we want to start that the school should have operational, because that repository is going to house, we are going to digitize all the legally deposited resources in the National Library. From the pre-colonial era, we have a lot of resources.
That's good.
Some of them are needed for research, some of them for leisure reading. In fact, as I'm speaking with you now, some people are there in Lagos because that's where we have the strong room digitizing. Now, all that we have digitized, we upload there, but then the copyright issue, especially for monographs, books, Nigerians wouldn't want them. One is that those that will be free, you read it, documents, circulars, anything that is in the public domain, you can read it freely. Then there are some of them you can have partial access. That is to say, you will see the title, you see the content page, so that you know, oh, this book or this material has something I'm looking for. Then you can now contact us. We tell you where it is of the book, but you cannot open, you cannot download. We are doing automated system, and that's not all. When you go beyond this country, or even in this country, you may have heard eLibrary USA.
Yes.
That is what they are using. USA is using to give access to the reading public, nested people and those people who access from their diplomatic relation areas, what they have. They give people access. We have developed a virtual library. We are the 98% completion, but we have not posted. These are some of them. There are so many of them. Importantly, you know that the in-depth newspapers published in this country, there are a lot of resources, content, research materials inside it.
Definitely.
They are doctored out there. We are abstracting them. Any article, we abstract it and index so that we optimize. Yes, and we do not have staff. But we are trying.
We don't have staff. Can I apply? I'm sure a application.
Apply because we have not been given permission to do that. Yes.
Right. So I'm going to take a little break, and I'm sure you're wondering all the English is speaking. Some of us understand it, some of us do not. But we go to her domain, her environment, busy doing work without taking care of her home. With the National Librarian and Chief Executive National Library here in Nigeria. Research is, one big place. We need to build on a famous group, be it in science, the arts, everything. And when you speak research, it's synonymous with reading and investigation, which for me, it's library.
And of course, sustainable development, there must be research. And the conscious research, we can only, but I thank God that intervention bodies like TEDFON is really doing great for higher institutions, universities, colleges of education, polytechnics and non-technics. They are helping them at least to subscribe. In as much as indigenous research, indigenous knowledge are good, you really need to subscribe to globally accepted databases so that for scientists, they will go in there to see what temperature, our environment, our climate is different from that of the United States. Let us see how we are going to adapt our own. But you have to see what do you not have the money, but TechFund is supporting them. But the second question is, are we really utilizing those resources effectively.
Okay, you're still going to answer that question, but I want to know, you're here in office and female CEO, you're not the first really, but a lot will insist because they always believe that it's the other way around. How has the journey been for you?
Let me tell you, women are better. Women are better leaders. Not because I'm a woman. No, because at home. Our leadership starts from the home. We are there with the family. In fact, we lead the man. In spite of the fact that the man is the head of the family, we are the one that try to channel them. And then we lead the children. And because of leading the children, you see characters and you see how to manipulate, motivate, organize, plan them, and come out fine. Because if you see a well-planned home, it's because the woman is a good leader. Now, what we do in the public service is to transfer that qualities we have garnered from home to the office. The only thing is that we have a lot of responsibility, the domestic responsibility, and they're here in the office. But then,
So with your husband and your children, whenever you mention them, they smile in your face. How are you going to manage that area?
Oh, no.
Secret.
To start with, I grew up with my children. So, we are on talk.
You cook for your husband?
His favorite is well-cooked rice. That's rice in stew. Love vegetable soup so much. Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Okay, so for relaxation, what do you do?
Well, as you see me here.
There's a song I like, and it says, okay.
Pray for the wondrous prayer.
So I extracted everything for you. Nigerian women, we were very relaxed. We had a lot of weight. Where is your weight?
I used to be very fat, but I was very conscious of it because it became a laughing stock. I became a laughing stock because of my weight. You know, among teenagers, that kind of thing, if you are that fat and they will look at you, why are you like this? You are spoiling our picture. This. Because of the consciousness, I mind what I eat.
Speak to women out there. They're not going to you.
Every woman is bound to face challenge in the home. You do not allow it to dampen your tomorrow, because your tomorrow is the family's tomorrow. The husband's tomorrow is not the family's tomorrow. If the woman is strong in character, in learning, in spirit, if a woman is resilient, the family will be resilient. That is my message for every woman.
It's been an amazing moment with you. I must thank you for welcoming us here and letting us have a peep into your personal life. Thank you so much. And I know that the remaining 4 years will be more beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll be talking with the National Librarian, the Chief Executive Officer as the CEO of the National Library. I will be again the next week with another exciting personalities. But while you're waiting, pick up a book and read and start your family library.
Information is power. Everyone one's power. To feel powerful with the NTA News Mobile app, the one-stop information center, real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the You Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app. Your access to real-time information.
NTA Sports 24, where sports thrive. NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues, accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Welcome to News Update at 11. I am Frama Panye. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has expressed the need for an effective synergy between the fiscal and monetary policy as well as the exchange rate management system. The Vice President also makes case for the use of technology, which he says has substantially helped in the implementation of the administration's numerous programs.
The power sector is an area where there has been game-changing progress. But the situation is rather like building a skyscraper. The foundation is several floors into the ground and no one sees the work while the critical component of the building is being done. And this is where we are in the power sector. A lot of foundational stuff is going on. First is the improvement in generating capacity today.
The Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation has concluded plans to conduct the 2022 Annual Public Service Confirmation Examination nationwide as a computer-based test. To this end, the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation is collaborating with the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, to ensure the realization of the transition from the manual method of conducting the examination to electronic. The combined confirmation promotion for junior staff and the compulsory confirmation examination for senior staff, who are the two mandatory confirmation examinations in the public service, including the police and paramilitary agencies. They are not an option but a mandatory requirement. The 2022 compulsory confirmation examination for senior officers will take place on Wednesday, 19th October 2022 Across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT, the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of Federation will be utilizing 69 computer-based test centers for the exercise, while about 13,000 officers from the core civil service, the Nigerian police, and other paramilitary and specialized agencies will take part in this year's examinations. It is remarkable to note that the entire process leading to the conduct of this confirmation examination were done electronically. The National Population Commission (NPC) says preparations for the 2023 census are in top gear and set to begin trial post-enumeration survey in 6 states selected across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. The nationwide exercise, which will also include a mop-up, will run from Tuesday 18th October to 29th October 2022.
Welcome to the site, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you so much for joining us.
Some recent data released by the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that the headline inflation rate in August 2022 rose to 20.52%. This surge is considered the highest since September 2005, rising from 19.64% recorded in July of this year. There are several reasons adduced for the spike, and we will be going over a number of them on this episode. Of course, Elizabeth is here. She would also be talking about something quite interesting. Elizabeth?
Of course, recently the Lagdo Dam was released in Cameroon, and the consequences are quite grave. So we sought the opinion of the experts on how to prevent a recurrence.
Very well, then let's begin the conversation. I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
Remember the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate
many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These applications, there are terms and conditions.
Of course, it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
The National Bureau of Statistics is saying that the likely factors responsible for the increase in the annual inflation rate, that is a year-on-year basis, include a disruption in the supply of food products, an increase in import costs due to persistent currency depreciation, and general increase in the cost of production. I'll be going over some of these issues with my guest, Issa Aliyu-Shatta, economist and VP, Konga Pay. Welcome to Inside Aliyu-Shatta. It's been a bit.
Thank you very much. It's good to have you back.
Great. Wonderful. Of course, Issa Aliyu-Shatta is in Lagos. He's joining us via Zoom. I flipped through the NBS data, and according to the report, on a month-on-month basis, the urban inflation rate was 1.79% in August 2022. This shows a 0.03% decline compared to July 2022, which stood at 1.82%. But even within that context, there are still variations. And I'm talking about the differentials in urban-rural inflation rates, depending on the month. So I know there are countries in Africa worse than where Nigeria, maybe where we are currently, and maybe in other parts of the world. But But a runaway inflation, or what they call hyperinflation, will spell doom for us economically. But not to make light of our rather dire situation, does it not seem like we are already at the point where there are distortions in economic decisions, even those concerning savings and investment?
Yeah, well, not necessarily, but yes, those are key indicators and key factors that are actually mitigating against all of these dynamics that you've just spoken about. And if you want to drill down, compare the August 2022 inflation year on year compared to last year, 2021, you will see that there was an increase of 3.52%, when you compare year on year. If you drill down, just like you have also said, we have some states, who are actually floating on top. And sadly, those states are actually basically southern states, right? Bayelsa, for instance, is part of those states. Rivers, for instance, is part of the states. And the states who have lower, percentage in terms of, inflation rate are actually also, funny enough, in the northwest. You have states like Zamfara, you have states like Katsina. Then you also have, surprisingly, states like Borno State, where you have large insurgency rate and all that. So it is in the northwest where you ordinarily think we should also have that, if it is even marginal increase because of the activities of insecurity, banditry, and the rest. We are just seeing that, happening side by side. One can explain the reason why you see that hyperinflation. This inflation we are seeing is actually inflation that is not actually driven by the fiscal policy or by the monetary policy, but by circumstances that are geared, towards demand and supply. Circumstances that are geared towards supply chains, basically. And there is a ripple effect with what is happening globally, because even inflation rate is going higher.
Exacerbated by the Ukraine Russia conflict, well, as per food inflation.
Exactly. So, but if you look at it, drill down, you have the high increase in corn, in wheat, in gas. Drill down to Nigeria. This should be an advantage to us, because we are saying we want to push the agricultural sector and drive the agricultural sector to be export driven. But unfortunately, we are not able to actually flatten the curve or even meet the demand. Why? The reason is not far-fetched. I have mentioned insecurity earlier, right? There is a lot of people moving. There's this rural-urban drift because people are no longer comfortable. They are no longer, secured or safe to farm. And when you have little hands involved in farming activities, there are ripple effects. Even those who are already in farming activities, we've heard on the news where farmers have to pay to gain access to their farm. All of these things will have a cushion effect. They will have their own multiplier effect negatively on food items. Now, if you also look at the over-dollarization of our politics, where there is a lot of huge money in circulation. So there are money in circulation.
You are not having this conversation on dollarization of the Nigerian economy.
Exactly. And if you look at the money in circulation, especially during this period of the politics, where there were a lot of cash in circulation and also that can explain to you why we have a lot of, that percentage increase in urban area in the southern states, and you have lesser in the northern state. But then
it's an amalgam of various issues. I mean, you've rightly pointed that out. It's quite fascinating, the variation and how intrinsic it is. And I mean, when you look at the variations between the urban and rural area, and you mentioned a few states. So I would like to follow up on that line of thought. I don't know, but I'm sure you may have the report there with you. But let's look at the core inflation. The core inflation axis, state by state, and you would notice that the inflation rate on a year-to-year basis was highest in Ebonyi with 25.33%, Rivers with 23.70%, and Bayelsa with 23.01%. And on the same year-on-year basis, food inflation was highest in Kwara with 30.80%, Ebonyi 28.06%, and yet again Rivers with 27.64%. Does it mean businesses in these states, as well as farmers and processors maybe, are having a lot more difficult time than in other states? We already have identified some of these challenges. You've talked about them. There's also, you did not mention access to forest exchange, for instance, but of course, I was about going there. You did not reference power shortages, that is electricity. There's also the issue of fuel scarcity and transportation. And let's not forget what happens with post-harvest losses arising from lack of adequate storage capacity. All of this. So my question really to you, Ali Shatta, is why do these states that I've mentioned earlier stand apart, and why are they the top notchers in the CPI for August?
Yeah, the reason is not far-fetched. And I've mentioned some of the factors that have contributed to that hike or that increase in those states. If you look at it critically, there has been shortage of movement of food items from the north to the south, right? And with a lot of insecurity that is happening, the tension that is happening around the political environment has also exacerbated the reason why we are having this disparity. And if you look at these states that you have also mentioned,
yes,
you want to ask how many economic activities are they actually into? What is the capacity? What is the capacity of their agricultural output compared to the north, for instance? So that gives you that that gives you the disparity where the demand and supply is not equal. So you have more demand than supply, and that will ordinarily jack up prices because you have shortage of items in circulation and few people can also have access to it. And a lot of people have also adjusted their purchasing power, because right now when people have paid for rent, they pay for those essential services that can make their life just to sustain their life, basically to keep body and soul together. They also want to cut off unnecessary spending on luxury items, right? And that also gives them pressure to want to stock food items. But how many of them even have savings, to go into all of this? Majority of this, critical mass in the Nigerian population live on credit. And before you know it, when it's end of the month, they are either back to settle their credit, and with high interest rates again. So there's a lot of pressure. Well, and
I know a lot of people also get credits in the United States, in the UK, and other parts of Europe, some parts of Europe. And of course, I know they're also suffering rising inflation. But you interestingly raised a couple of issues in your last response. You talked about rising prices, cutting down on wastages and all of that. So, of course, there's no doubt that with rising inflation, purchasing power is reduced, and the clamor in Nigeria for increased wages by workers across the country. But for that to happen, national revenue inflow must also go up. But seeing what is happening in our oil sector, which largely remains our mainstay, I wonder at the prospect. It's also intrinsically linked. Can you attempt to untangle the web and perhaps build one that could form a safety net enough to guarantee inflow of funds, cut unnecessary costs, and perhaps jumpstart our economy?
The truth is, one of the first things that we need to do is to cut excess wastages. Because that's one thing. Those are low-hanging fruit. Those are the things that we have control over almost instantaneously. Where you can say, let me give you an example. This might sound a little bit funny. Last year, NURTW in Lagos State generated about 129 billion. This is an informal sector. So if you look at that critical sector, which is the transportation sector, what can we do differently to harness the potential in this sector and ensure that those gains actually automatically count for tax, and the state or even the country at large can use it in bettering the lives of people? This is just one of those aspects I think we can work on. We are talking about collecting tax in the informal sector. How well have we automated the process? If we have seriously automated the process, we would have gotten more gains in this sector. The next thing that we also need to look at is data. If we have clean data, if you have data with people who are contributing to economic activity, it is easier for you to deduct as source, whatever tax you want to collect, to ensure that you also contribute back to the. But you want to ask yourself one question. All of the tax that have been collected, or multiple taxation that has even happened, what impact have they actually had on the lives of those who are paying them? What economic impact have they had? Do we see clear-cut roadmap to see this is exactly what you want to do with what you are collecting versus what
sorry to jump in here, but I really like your take on this issue of taxation, saying that in other climes there is the clamor for reduction in taxation. Yeah, we have issues of multiple taxation. What really is the balance? How can we balance it at a time like this where we're experiencing rising inflation? Should we be having increases in tax, whether it's VAT or whether it's
driven process, right? We have the joint tax force, right? They can come together, federal, state, local government, and identify different tax channels or different tax items to say we are collecting on behalf of the local government and state. At the end of the collection, we split it based on percentage rate, and this is automatically disbursed. So with this, you can muzzle up a lot of firepower to come up with one single collection source that probably might have an aggregated sources of collection underneath them. But it is clean because you have one data set that you are using to collect tax. So this reduces overtaxation processes and also gives everybody transparency and accountability with good audit trail for everybody to be able to know that, yes, what is being collected is evenly distributed. So that is on the one side. On the other part, we were talking about how we can cushion the effect. If we don't address the issue of insecurity, if we don't really attack it and we are treating it on the surface, we will continue to have all of this impact in our economy. It's going to impact us negatively. So one of the major steps we need to take to ensure that we correct what we are currently going through right now is to ensure that we address the issue of insecurity. It's a no-brainer. Once we are able to fix that aspect, people will now have confidence more to go back to farm. People cannot also do large-scale farming without fear, right? And that will immediately impact the economy because now we can also be export-driven. The war that Ukraine and Russia has created for us, have created a market, but we are not taking advantage of that opportunity. Rather, this further exposes us to what we have been doing, which means we are largely consuming rather than producing.
I mean, I've heard people talk a lot. I mean, I've heard people gone down that lane, and it's quite unfortunate that we are where we are. But, you are from the private sector, so, I mean, this is an issue that those of you in the private sector monitor. So, in lots of cases, companies like yours, I mean, that act swiftly to respond and reposition can turn inflation disruption into value and emerge as winners. I mean, you've spoken to a lot of these. Why is it that it's difficult for a country like us, particularly, to perhaps go that lane as well, flip the disruptions caused by inflation, and then emerge as winners?
I think basically it's willpower, right? The willpower to take first responsibility and secondly to execute. If you combine these two factors together, you will definitely get a positive result into whatever direction you want to take. But first, we need to be able to tell ourselves the truth, to say this is the challenge that we are facing, and these are steps that we have taken to ensure that we correct those challenges. And these are measures we have also put in place to ensure we measure our milestones, we measure the growth, we measure everything that we are doing based on the statistics that we get from NBS as well. So we sort of have a metrics to guide or to gauge the economy temperature to know that we are actually doing the right thing. But like I said, we need to stop talking. We need to start to execute. And until we begin to do that, one step at a time, we will always come back and talk in cycles.
Very true. Very true. You know something. I think Nigeria's major and greatest source of capital revenue is its human resources, that is the brain capacity that we have here. Look, I mean, I know brain drain is happening, okay, but isn't it time for us to play defense? I mean, there are export programs for produce and goods and all of that, but why are we not amplifying the subject of brain capital to earn foreign exchange from right here in Nigeria, rather than having some of our best brains jackpotting? I mean, I know this is possible. I mean, it's possible to work from here and earn FX to augment what is coming from our colleagues, I mean, the diaspora remittances.
Yeah. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead. I mean, the issue of capitalizing on our brain capital right from here, to earn FX at least.
So you're talking about the sad syndrome of
very quickly too, Ali Shatta, we were actually out of time.
Yeah, talking about the sad concept of Japarism, is really disheartening that this brain drain is happening, because the truth is they are not only taking our brains out, they are taking our best brains out, and if you drill down, they are also taking more of our tech brains out. And this is very worrisome, because we are talking about modernization, we are talking about a tech-driven economy. Now, most of the young, vibrant youth that we have today who are tech-driven
we seem to be having some network issues with you, Ali Shatta. Can you hear me?
Be the one sitting at, to help us, yeah, I can hear you. So they are supposed to be the one sitting back at home to help us, continue the process of, putting all the technology that we have in the country together to ensure that we
can barely, at this point we can barely see your face. Your shot is so dark. At this point we cannot we can barely see your face, but if you just adjust your computer a bit and face the light and just round off for us at this point in 60 seconds, if that's possible. Great, I think that's manageable. Please just round off your thoughts in 60 seconds, if that is possible.
Okay, so essentially, what I feel that is more painful for us is that we are not taking cognizance of what is happening. And you are saying, how can we take advantage of the situation? That largely goes back to tell you about the data I'm talking about. If I ask you sitting there, that how many Nigerians have gone out of the country with this, Japa syndrome, you can't even say it, and even the Nigerian government cannot tell you.
There are some figures out there, anyways.
Exactly. So, but if you have that data-driven economy, you can capitalize on it and say, okay, human capital, this is what the tax that you're giving. So, for everybody who is coming or who is, getting our resources outside the country, this is the amount of tax that you pay, for engaging anybody in the country. I think this is essentially what we need to do.
And I hear you, and I hear you loud and clear, and I get what you're saying. But I think it's high time we started to even began, I beg your pardon, to earn foreign exchange right from our living rooms and our homes here in Nigeria. And there are programs where, there are a couple of work from home programs where we have a few of them. Not so much in Nigeria, where we have some Nigerians earning dollars from here. Offering their expertise right from here, from their homes, whether in Aba or in Lagos or in Abuja or in Jalingo or Jigawa. And it's happening, but it's not so popular. I am hoping that, this is time we can take advantage of our massive, very massive brain capital, and we begin to explore opportunities abroad and bring the forex back home here, spend the money back home here, and then, that way we can also increase remittances there. Isa Ali Shatta, I would like to thank you so much for coming on the program. Of course, your as always, your thoughts on this issue has been profound. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Insight.
You're almost welcome. But what I can tell you is that they've given us sort of foreign direct investment. So we are also getting those proceeds coming back home. So we are sending money back home. Trust me.
Thank you so much. Of course, I know that. Thank you so much. From the economy, we'll move on to politics. In the immediate past episode of Insight, I have two academics give their opinion on some key issues of national concern. The debate was on leadership. I mean, we did talk about the debate on leadership, I beg your pardon, and governance, devolution of power, as well as the subject of perpetuating prejudice on the character of Nigeria's political elite. Their views were quite profound. Let me ask you, since I'm with you on you rather already, let me ask you a question on endorsement. So let's just zero in on the elections proper and whether or not they impact elections here in Nigeria. I know they do in other parts of the world in some climes, but a lot of people have said that it was the politics of endorsement that brought President Muhammadu Buhari to power in 2015, since he got the support of both international and national figures. If that is the case, then endorsement must have some level of impact here in Nigeria. Is that your opinion as well? And to what extent can endorsement impact on a candidate's electoral fortunes, whether by celebrities, traditional or religious leaders, youths, they have youth groups and even civil groups have started endorsing. I even saw in fact, we've seen market women do that all the time. I mean, to what extent do they impact, Dr. Adeyemi?
Now, endorsements are very valuable and useful to have if you're a politician, but it depends on who's endorsing you. Endorsement generally, is the validation of your policy by different stakeholders and interest groups. Okay, what we are saying is that, look, we have looked at your program, we have seen your personality, we have seen your whole profile, and our association aligns with you that you are the best candidate of all available, that will advance the cause of our interest group. So let's say, for instance, like you have it in developed climes, the medical, association, of medical doctors, for instance, endorses a particular candidate. What that generally means is that you have the best, program for healthcare. If ASUU endorses somebody,
exactly, because they speak on issues that are on the ballot that affects them, and based on that, they endorse that person's program. Is that how it plays out here?
That's how it's supposed to be. It's the section of your manifesto, your program, that appeals to a particular stakeholder group or interest group or pressure group that makes them endorse Nnamdi as the best of the three candidates speaking now. Okay, now the extent to which that translates into electoral victory depends on the clout of that association endorsing you, or of that personality, their following. Okay?
So, I would rather take you up on something else. I mean, I somewhat suspect your view on endorsements, because you live somewhere outside of Nigeria. You've experienced how endorsement works. So I kind of suspect that it's something you would agree to. But let me take you up on the issue of ethnic politics and religious politics in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we still contend with these issues here in the country, and some would say that the regional outlook of some of the major presidential candidates may be suggestive of impending challenge, one that could involve or that involves how these candidates are going to be truly perceived and whether they will be publicly embraced by some persons or some groups in some regions. This has been an issue for almost as long as we've existed as a nation. But then, how can we truly escape this narrative of ethnic politics and engender nationalistic politics?
Well, it's going to be problematic in many ways. When you have a leader that is embracing his own ethnic groups at the expense of others, when you have a leader that believes that my way or no way, like I've said, that's when you have.
But now you're talking about leaders now. But then, okay, I referenced the candidates and having some of our candidates having these leanings, and then and remember we've talked about perpetuating prejudice. How do we escape from that that box that we've been in for far too long? Yes.
Well, it's not going to be done on a snap of hand. Definitely. It's a process.
Definitely.
But we have to start somewhere. But if, let's say, we have a government in place right now that is doing the right thing, people will embrace it. Oh, it doesn't favor its own ethnic group, is fair to everyone. The appointment is evenly divided, is evenly distributed. People will appreciate that, But when there is a lopsided appointment, as an asymmetrical appointment, favoring one side of the country against the other, you are going to bound to have problems. That's not question about it. People will speak up.
Gentlemen, we're totally out of time, as a matter of fact, but very quickly before I let you both go, I'd like to know, and quite strongly too, your top 3 public policy issues, that you think should be on the ballot come 2023. I think I'll start with Dr. Aderemi first.
Well, I think the first thing, because you can't put something on nothing and expect it to stand, is to arbitrate, every to the micro level, of biases of sectionalism, that we have in this country. We must stop, first and foremost, to reckon with Nigeria in terms of religion, ethnicity, gender, abilities, and all of that. Once we have that, then for me, we can begin to talk. And by the way, if anybody tells you now that I'm going to come as president of Nigeria in 6 months, I'm going to do this, it is fraudulent to make those claims. There are fundamental issues that we need to address to before. We need to stabilize before you develop. It's a logical sequence. So I think we need to first and foremost begin the construction of the nation so that all Nigerians will feel a part of without discrimination. Secondly is security. Thirdly will be welfare of the people. We must have people popular, what do you call it? People-centered, popular, government-oriented policies.
Great, fantastic. Those are your 3 policy points. That you think should be policy issues rather that you think should be on the ballot. Dr. Falai.
Firstly, I will say the nature of our federation, the federalism we have in the country.
That's one.
Because the nature of, when you have people are talking about amendment to the current 1999 constitution, they should not be talking about amendment to this current constitution. It should be tossed into the garbage.
No, that is not true. You cannot say that, Dr. Falai. I know you live in the United States, and I'm sure you're aware that even there in the United States, they've had to undergo constitutional amendments more times than Nigeria. Of course, because the democracy is older.
If Nigeria is to move forward, we have to come to a conference table to discuss the future of our country.
Is there a perfect constitution in any part of the world, Dr. Falai? Is there a perfect constitution in any part of the world?
You say what?
Is there a perfect constitution in any part of the world?
Even American constitution. If you say American constitution, you say this is a movement to a perfect union, so it's not perfect. Even American democracy is flawed according to the economics democratic index. It's flawed. There's no perfect system in anywhere in the world, and there is no constitution that can self-correct itself. No constitution. The people that are operating it, from time to time we have to adjust it to reflect the reality of the society.
Exactly. So we do not have to talk it into the bin.
They say let us take one issue from the exclusive list and put it to concurrent. No, let us sit down together and think about the geography restructuring of that country. That is the only way we can move forward. Because when you have some people that they think they are the custodian of a power in Nigeria for whatever reason, it's not good.
Dr. Falai, you've taken up all of your time for your 3 points.
Group, leadership should not come from this part of the country. If we are all Nigerians, a minority should have the right, and people which will embrace him to become
So, Dr. Falai, let me help you make a submission. 1 is constitutional review or amendment. 2 is unity, and 3 maybe security. Thank you so much. From expert opinion, I would like to go to the court of public opinion and see what the people are saying on the same subject matter. Let's get a sense of what the public expects to hear from the candidates during the campaign. Let's get their reaction.
as campaign begins, is for them to come and tell us what they have for Nigerians. It's not for them to come and insult themselves.
I want them to identify the issues that may plaguing the common Nigerians and to, discuss objectively, how they intend, to deal with those issues.
You know Nigerian problems. Have you identified them? So what are the solutions? When you have problems, what are the likely solutions to those problems? You itemize it so that we know that you are coming with a solution.
I can say by next year or next week, I'll buy a Mercedes Benz for everybody resident in Abuja. It's a simple, police will not arrest me for making a statement. I have a right of speech. Is that also? I can say next week I will buy Mercedes Benz 450L for everybody resident in Abuja. That's what the people are doing. Anybody can make that statement. So if they are sincere, they should tell us how they want to buy the Mercedes. Where is the money? Do you have the money in the bank? How did you get the money?
We need Nigeria, how they can prove what the youth solve their problems. In fact, unemployment level, even not to go to school. There is this strike that's at school. You can talk with many youths are just lavishing.
There are issues of insecurity, fear of kidnapping, and the rest of them. They should try and, as much as possible, also to work on that.
I want to educate the politicians. They should understand that running an election is equivalent to what? A job application.
What I just have to say is that they should just try and stop fighting, and they just focus on PDP should focus on PDP and APC should focus on APC, and they should try and make Nigeria a better place because youth are suffering.
Well, it's not just the PDP or the APC. It goes for all of the parties. I do have a guest joining me via Zoom to discuss some of what we've gleaned from this Vox Pop. Dr. Stephen Iroro Izu is a political economist and development expert. Welcome to Inside Doc. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Good evening, Nigerians.
What are your some of your thoughts on some of these issues that members of the public are saying, going by some of what we just heard?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It is very clear that Nigerians today are more conscious than Nigerians before now. More conscious in the sense that the Nigerians know what they want, from their leaders. And they are not ready to just get empty rhetorics or empty, assurances. So be that as it may, Nigerian political leaders to be, those vying for the 2023 general elections at all levels, must begin to, to come up with tangible, facts of what they want to do. I've always argued that leadership goes beyond just the political aspects. We must look at the economics of leadership. Now, when leaders are only talking about politics, it shows that somehow some of them may be bereft of ideas. So the economics of leadership must also be hammered on. Which translate to development.
So, Doc, you throw these whole economics of leadership into the mix, and I get a sense that some Nigerians feel like they have experienced or are experiencing a psychological contract violation with unmet expectations and all that. Isn't that expected? Even when the least of expectations are met halfway, there would always be critics and hailers, I suppose.
Yes, of course. Nigerians perhaps feel this psychological dissatisfaction because political leadership is supposed to be the torchbearer of society, according to J.F. Kennedy. Now, bearing the torch means that everything that represents darkness, will be extinguished, will be eliminated. Darkness in the sense that you have poverty, you have ignorance, you have a political supply. Leadership is supposed to be in a position to ensure that these existential situations or problems that have been confronting the Nigerian state over a period of time, are done away with. So leaders who are coming to take up the mantle of leadership at all levels must understand the fact that Nigerians are beginning to experience, this frustration, aggression tendency because of previous, failures, of a past leaders.
Doc, let me borrow the words of Stephen Biko when he said, I would like to remind, and I would like to quote here, I quote, I would like to remind the black ministry and indeed all the black people that God is not in the habit of coming down from heaven to solve people's problem on earth. End of quote. If you put that against elections and governance in Nigeria, I mean, the people, you and I know that people are always praying here and they expect a miracle to happen. Isn't that part of the challenge, I mean, that Steve Biko highlighted, as against people taking their votes seriously, exercising their franchise, I mean, and electing a government that they can hold responsible, which in turn is answerable to them and also accountable as well to the people. So, and let me just ask you a pointed question. Do you think the people are the core problem that we have, or what? Because, like they say, if people deserve the leaders or the leadership that they get, since the leaders do not come from outer space but amongst the people themselves.
Now, you must understand the fact that Nigerian citizens, we are not very difficult to lead. We are not also very difficult to persuade. Nigerians are people that want to give you the benefit of the doubt. So it's not as if Nigerians are the creators of their own problems or the kind of leaders that have emerged. Nigerians have been cheated, defrauded, duped, by a few, who have taken for instance, their hospitality, their trust, for granted. But Nigerians are waking up to this reality, to say, no, enough is enough. Let us get the persons who have not just the capacity, but who have that fortitude, of heart, to lead us to the El Dorado that we have always wanted. So I would not want to blame the people, because they have only been cheated, on the basis of the trust that they bestowed on a few, people who have somehow, not lived up to the expectation of the trust, given to them. So I think that leaders, must begin to, Nigerians are beginning to see that their leaders must be people that are not just accessible, before elections, but people that will be accessible even after the elections. So and they are all indications, shows that that the Nigerians are towing that line of trying to remedy, this psychological blackmail on them, by previous administrations.
I truly hope so. I hope the level of consciousness, political consciousness and participation that we're seeing currently translates to, people actually participating in the polls, and we hope for greater and better things ahead. Dr. Stephen Iwero-Izu, political economist and development expert, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Insight.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, as always. Thank you.
When water is released from dams, houses, offices, hospitals, transportation roads and bridges are destroyed. People even become homeless. Recently, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency advised communities along River Niger in Kwara, Niger and Kogi states to relocate. This is as a result of water released from Kanji and Jeba dams. The dams are releasing water per minute that could lead to the overflow of River Niger. The agency also says there is the likelihood that Adamawa, Benue, Nasarawa and another states would experience flooding following the release of water from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon. What are the implications and how can we prevent a recurrence? These are some of the questions my guest Clement Nze, Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, will be answering. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on Insight.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here again.
Could you shed more light on the statement released by your agency regarding the latest release from the dams?
Yes, there are communities that are contiguous to River Niger or that are within the banks of River Niger.
if you notice, all over the country there have been incessant, heavy amount of rainfall, leading to high saturation of the soil. Now, the dams are overwhelmed. By that I mean, it gets a certain threshold that to safeguard the life of the dam, the best thing you do is to commence a gradual release of water. And that's what both Kainji and Jeba dams have commenced to do. The implication is this, that the communities downstream the dams and very close to the banks of River Niger are going to experience flooding. We have been talking about this over the months, of the likelihood of release of water from the dams, and incidentally it has come to be. So we advise communities and people that are doing business by the banks of River Niger to relocate. You can do that, and after some months, when the river must have receded, the flood level, you can go back to your business. But to save your life, we advise that these communities should relocate. The state governments, the state have been listed, the Niger, Kwara, and so on and so forth. They know themselves. I mean, they know the communities that are involved, even from our prediction, earlier prediction in the year. So the best to be done now is to relocate to higher grounds.
So relocation is a key thing now.
Yeah.
Now, the release from Lagdo Dam seems to be causing more harm. How do we cut this practice? Because the implications are quite grave. And we understand that the Lagdo management do have a practice.
That's been quite pathetic. You know, for quite some months I have been in contact with authorities in Cameroon, people that are in charge of the day-to-day run of the dams, of the Lagdo Dam, pleading with them to respect the letters of the Memorandum of Understanding signed by the two countries. I recall that in 2016, President Paul Biya was in Nigeria to meet with his Nigerian counterpart, His Excellency Muhammad Buhari, GCFR. They signed an MOU that in the event Cameroon must release water from Lagdo Dam, Nigeria should be notified ahead of time so as to evacuate the citizens by the banks of the Benue. Now, about 3 weeks ago, I called and sent text message. They are sure that whenever they are going to do release of water, they will notify Nigeria. Now, out of instinct, on the 14th of this September, I sent another message as a follow-up. Then I get a response that we commenced the release of water yesterday, that being 13th, by 8:50 a.m. at the rate of 615 cubic meters per second. So from time to time, they don't notify Nigeria. As we speak, so many communities in Adamawa, Taraba, and Benue have been flooded. There's an immigration office at Urobok in Adamawa. That place has been taken over by flood. Go to Luma, go to Yola, and several other cities or communities within Taraba, Adamawa, and coming on to Benue. So they are fond of releasing water without informing Nigeria, breaching the content of the MOU signed by the two nations.
Well, before we talk about measures to be taken to curb the impact of these releases, what would the Nigerian government be doing regarding the action of the Cameroonian Lagdo management?
You see, in 2019, I was on another assignment outside Nigeria when I got a report from my officers in Yola that the dam, the river Benue was overflowing. So many communities have been submerged. That was in October 2019. I called. They denied ever releasing water. Until much later, November 1, they told me that we opened our dam on October 10th and closed it October 31st, having 3 weeks of non-stop of release of water. Now, we took it up. The Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Adam, wrote a letter to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria with necessary documents relating to the MOU signed and requesting that he takes it up with his Cameroonian counterpart for breaching the understanding between the two nations. That one is being addressed. Why do you release water? Why do you breach the content of the MOU signed by the two nations? So that one has been enforced. And we try to work it out and see why such a thing should be done.
Affected persons have been directed to leave their houses. What? Do we have plans for these persons?
NEMA is already at work. They have the offices within those areas, within the state. And also working in tandem with the state emergency management agencies to see to what should be done to relocate affected people. Even though some of them may not want to do that, to be relocated. But NEMA is doing its best in that regard.
Well, of course, the rains would always come every year. But is there a permanent solution to this issue? Because people lose their lives every day to flooding, their property, some lose their jobs, their livelihood. Could there be a permanent solution to it?
You see, it's a natural phenomenon. Yes, we talk about climate change and so on and so forth, that we cannot stop flooding, but we can reduce this negative impact on us by taking necessary measures. If we know that there is a certain period of the year that this flood will occur, certain measures need to be taken ahead of time. There are structures that need to be constructed by governments. I keep talking about the sub-national, we have the state government. The measure that the state government should have taken, having been given advisories ahead of time to build some structures, barriers in some locations in their states that will release the flood that normally occurs. Talk about cleaning up their drainages, building regions where they don't exist at all, and then taking the bull by the horn by removing structures that individuals have built within the floodplains. But we keep advocating the issue of taking the people away from those areas, and even individuals on their own to take their own responsibility for themselves to move away from the flood-prone areas before the flood comes. So it is both government and individuals that have to take responsibilities. Not just government, but individuals have their own part to play. And also, you can't just be waiting for federal government to come and do it in your own state. Let the states also take some steps to ensure that they secure the lives of their citizens. Relocate them, build necessary structures that will prevent the flooding, remove structures that are obstructing the flow of flood once it comes. It is an annual event, so to say, that we should be able to have adapted or gotten some measures on ground to help us reduce the impact, even when we cannot stop it entirely. Federal government has done some work by way of consulting what we call flood hostels through the Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation. We have it in some critical locations in different states in Nigeria, where people that are in flood-prone areas are relocated at such critical period of the year. They go there, they have their normal life there, because facilities are already provided. You have clinic, you have water, you have, like a hostel in the secondary school. Kitchen where you can cook, stay there for some months, maybe 2 months or 3, depending on the severity. After that, you go back to your normal life or where you live. But to stop flooding permanently, we know what is happening globally. Although this is first, we have said the worst case scenario. What happened in Karachi, in Pakistan, where thousands of people lost their lives.
Clement Nze, Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. Sir, we want to thank you so much for sharing tips with us on this segment.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amina Mohammed, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
Agencies and stakeholders to proactively tackle these challenges.
Women in most countries of the world constitute about 50% of registered voters. Williams, reporting for Dateline 360.
Jones, Caleb Gochin, Deadline 360.
Naja Atiti
Deadline 360. Chidi Okafor.
For Deadline 360.
In Lagos, Michael Olaleye.
Reporting for Deadline 360. I am Omosola Omojola. Thanks for tuning in to Deadline 360.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insights. My name is Namdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Amori. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
NTA, you can't reach.
Is a mustard seed, then nurture it, water it, grow it into that tree in your rainforest.
And she already stands up for the announcement.
Issue in our society.
There are certain things you take that is good for you at the same time that's a bad side.
Yeah.
What is it that you want to leave us with today?
It started on 14th of February 2022 when the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASUU announced the commencement of a 2-week warning strike to press home its demands. As the 2 weeks elapsed, Nigerians were greeted by a rollover, then another, and finally the indefinite extension. Last week, the long wait ended as ASUU suspended the 8-month industrial action conditionally. It directed that both students and lecturers should resume academic activities on Monday, 17th October 2022. This brought a huge relief for students, parents, as well as some business owners who rely on patronage of the university community to make ends meet. On Panorama today, we shall be looking at the benefits and implications of the conditional suspension. Welcome to Panorama, coming to you live from the Lagos Network Center of the NTA. I am Adeola Komiakiri. Don't forget you can watch this news on all our verified social media handles displayed on your screen for updates. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari will later today sign an executive order on improving performance management, coordination and implementation of presidential priorities of the federal government of Nigeria. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Bruce Mustafa, says the executive order is part of government strategy to institutionalize the ongoing two-day Ministerial Performance Review retreat for ministers, permanent secretaries, and top government functionaries.
Of this ministerial retreat as an opportunity to consolidate the gains of previous retreats. Mr. President underscored the importance of critical infrastructure in economic development and his administration's quest to leave a legacy. He gave examples of high-impact projects across the country in infrastructure, aviation, health, and technology sectors.
In his goodwill message at the retreat, presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, commended the present administration for making historic progress despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and the global economic shocks occasioned by the Russia-Ukraine war.
And may I say thank you on behalf of all Nigerians to your entire administration, represented by all that are present here today. We supported you to get elected. We supported you before your first day in office. I will remain your friend and ally even after your final day at the job. I can say this because I know the vision you hold for Nigeria. It is a good and uplifting one. I know the level of patriotic dedication with which you have served this country. I know the things you have achieved. And listening critically to the laundry list of what was achieved and discussed yesterday, one will definitely realize the depth of commitment that every one of you has made to.
The Buhari administration considers the ongoing ministerial retreat as an opportunity to take stock and consolidate the gains of previous years, as well as finish strong in the delivery of legacy projects and programs of government. The Academic Staff Union of Universities ASUU asked students and lecturers to resume teaching and learning on Monday, 17th October 2022, after suspending its 8 months industrial action conditionally. Our correspondent was at the University of Lagos to monitor resumption.
The premises of University of Lagos is gradually coming alive again after 8 months of near emptiness and crippled academic activities. A few students are seen on campus trying to settle down for the task ahead. Though teaching and learning have not resumed, students are happy that they are back.
I'm not doing anything at home and everywhere is boring. I know an idle man. If you are not doing something, you can. But I'm happy to be in school. I'm happy. Since the strike has ended, we are moving forward.
It's given us some time to, think about what we want to do with our lives. But then everybody needs education.
I still have a mixed feeling, but I'm happy that ASUU called off the strike and we'll be able to continue our education and finish up and graduate.
The suspending of ASUU strike now is going to make me put data analytics in hold and then go back to school. And I don't want to forget the things I've already learned in data analytics, but in general, I'm very happy because I want to graduate and move on to the next phase of my life.
Chairman, University of Lagos chapter of ASUU speaks on the suspended strike.
NEC is the highest decision-making organ of our union. When it comes to strike, and resumption of duty. So NEC have directed that we go back to our duty post immediately, and that's why I'm here. So beginning from now, our members will be on campus, and then we see how it goes. But the directive of NEC will be obeyed by our members, I can tell you that.
Oluwatayo Musa has a shop in the commercial area of the school, and suspension of the strike means a lot to her business.
We didn't have enough people to patronize us, as it were, because students are our main customers, and so because of that, a lot of people shut down, like practically shut down.
Though the school is not as lively as it used to be, it is expected that in the coming days, academic and social activities will return to normal. In Lagos, Hingino, John Adams, NTA News.
Joining me in the studio to talk more on the suspended ASUU strike is Bolahun Olojide, a public affairs analyst. Glad to have you with us.
Very nice to be here.
Now you heard the reports. Now let's get down to business. The strike has been suspended conditionally. Now, what does this mean to the Nigerian tertiary institution?
Okay, it's a junction we have been several times. Whenever you have federal government and ASUU wahala, at some point, there will be some negotiations and they will go back. So we're at that point, maybe congratulations is in order, because the tertiary institutions can now start where they stopped. It's going to be a tough season for them, because you're talking about February 14 till October. It's a long period to have left things off. But then, it's better late than never, so they take off from where they stopped. But you see, I started by saying this is a junction we have been several times. But for the most part, after this resumption, we go to sleep until the next strike. So I hope that we will make this count and not go the other way of the past, so that now that we have been able to jumpstart resumption, we now go back to the drawing board and design a sustainable funding model for tertiary education in Nigeria. In 1972-73, when there was the first strike, at the heart of it was welfare and funding. And 50 years after, it is still welfare and funding. Obviously, something is not right. So we need to sit down and find what works for us as a country for financing tertiary education.
Okay, now you talked about the very long period. How do you think the students will be able to cope, having been away for 8 months?
It's going to be challenging for them, because what you're going to have is a rushed session. But they will need to do extra work, because the teachers will not be able to pile all the classes within the short period that is available. So most of these things will require self-effort on the part of the student.
Will not that turn out to be bringing out half-baked graduates?
It will affect the quality of what we're going to produce. There is no doubt about it, especially in certain courses. There is a way education builds up. If you don't know 2 plus 2, you might have a challenge with square root of 2 times square root of 2. So they build on one another. There are courses that are also prerequisites to some earlier ones. If the earlier ones were not delivered or properly delivered, the upper one will be challenged for the student. So it will take a bit of time for the student to settle into the effect of what has happened. But definitely, it will be extra work on the side of the lecturers, extra work on the side of the students.
Well, we hope they will be able to meet up with the available time at their disposal. That should mean they will be probably having weekend classes.
There could be weekend classes, there will be extra classes, there will be things that the teachers cannot take in class. I will just tell the student, look,
go and read.
Just go and read this on your own. There's no way to that. Don't forget that we had a long one in 2020. Here is another one. So it's just a mess.
And this strike, it's of the view of Nigerians, that why is it only when it's towards the election that lecturers now remember that there are some things the government is owing them and they want to go on strike? Do you think it's...
There could be elements of truth to that, because you may want to bargain, and you may think that election is a good time to get on that table for bargaining. But when you look at it historically, even when there were no elections, there were strikes. Even in the military era, there was strike. In 2020, we have just finished an election, so it wasn't an election that drove it in 2020. So the problem has been there, election or no election.
Okay. All right, now let's look at the federal government that just registered 2 more associations for the tertiary institution. Now, what becomes of ASUU at this point?
It's not going to hurt ASUU. It's also not the first time. It's an attempt by the government to break up ASUU. Some sort of divide and rule in a way. That's what Konoha is all about. But at the same time, no matter how you approach that issue, because it's not as if that issue does not have its own little merit. There are people who are within the academic institutions who are not particularly excited about ASUU's approach. Okay. So maybe you want to give them their own platform. But you see, will that solve the problem of sustainable funding model for tertiary education? My answer is no. Irrespective of how many unions, you still have to go back to that problem and solve it.
Okay, we will continue with this discuss, but let's take a break now, and Panorama will continue thereafter.
Here to call change, stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Change begins from within. Look at you, forget roll. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
We're glad to know you're still with us. We're still discussing with Gbolahan Olojede, a public affairs analyst, on ASUU. All right, now you made mention of there are some people in the system that are really not happy with ASUU. Now, do you think they will leave ASUU and join the other 2 unions?
They might.
And
Some might leave, but it will not change anything.
And it will not cause any fracas amongst them?
We should also ask, like I said before, this is not the first time the government was trying to play this game. So where is that other association today? Apparently, it's sort of fizzled out. That might be the way this one will also go. It might also not go the same way. But it looks to me like there are distractions. And if we're not careful, they will take away from the center, the crux of what we need to fix, which is that funding model.
Now, talking about that funding, how do you think tertiary institutions should be funded?
Okay, there are several models across the world. You can go from one extreme left in the Western, say America, for example, where people pay tuition, fair tuition, to get education. Or you go to the Scandinavians and countries like Germany, where government literally carries everything. You can also come to Africa, the Ghanas, the Benin Republic, and all the rest. So there are several models across the world. What we need to do is to look at what works for us as a country. And there should be nothing off the table, because we've been deceiving ourselves for so long about this solution. There are people who say it is everybody that is in public institution that cannot pay tuition. I beg to disagree. That is everybody that cannot pay tuition. Some of the people that you say cannot pay tuition have gone to Ghana to go and pay the tuition to Ghana, and they are there today. So we need stakeholders' engagement that is robust, that will put all the cards on the table, including tuition, including cost recovery for hostels, so many, including student loans. on the table, then we can come up with something that will work for us.
Okay, with all the hassle transpired this past 8 years, now it means the students will have to pay fresh tuition fee, accommodation, and all that. Do you think our parents will have faith in the education sector?
Well, that's why education is one thing that affects several segments of the society. Of course, parents are not excited. Rents have expired, and some students who stay outside the campus will need to pay another rent. So, from that perspective, yes, parents are going to bear some burden, and there's no running away from that. But as far as school fees is concerned, I don't think a public school will ask for another tuition for a session that has been paid for.
And we absolutely hope not. Finally, before I let you go, ASUU made mention of the calling out the strike conditionally. What does that mean? Does it mean that they are going to go back to striking again?
You know, like I use the word jumpstart. I think what we have been successful, what we have successfully done is to jumpstart that resumption. And one way to ensure that whatever conditions ASUU was referring to will not cause problem in the near future is to now go and sit down and discuss the subject matter we have been on for 50 years, sustainable funding model for tertiary education.
Thank you so much, Belahon Lejide, for your thoughts on Panorama today.
The pleasure is mine.
And we hope that the strikes in our tertiary institutions will become a thing of the past. Moving on now, the Nigerian Police Force has embarked on the training of recruits in the 4 premier police colleges and training schools in preparation for the upcoming general elections on the principles and ethics of public relations. Lynn Leneke reports that the aim is to regulate the use of social media by officers and men.
In the wake of increasing rate of political activities, the Nigeria Police Force is not relenting in ensuring that lives and property of citizenry is secured at all times. These recruits are being adequately armed with requisite knowledge and guidelines of elections and the use of social media while carrying out their constitutional duties. More than 700 recruits currently undergoing training are being prepared to take up the challenge of delivering their mandates.
We are teaching them the principles of PR to do the job when they go out there. We have a document on the duties of police in election security management. You are expected to be neutral, to be apolitical, to be professional in your dealings.
In ensuring the ethics of policing and use of social media in accordance to the Nigerian police policy on the use of social media is adhered to.
Actually need to regulate the way our officers use social media. If you are not the PR person, you are not on the rank of commissioner of police and above, you can't do anything on social media.
As the electioneering process is underway, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has directed that the training of recruits to augment the strength of the police in carrying out the force duties in election management be adhered to. He said the training will be replicated in the 4 premier police colleges and the 13 police training schools across the country. In Lagos, Lynn Leneke, NTA News.
We shall take another break. Panorama will be right back.
Slavery is an evil practice abolished all over the world over 200 years ago. But today, human traffickers are selling human beings as slaves in Africa. It is your responsibility to make sure that you and the people you know do not fall into slavery. Don't believe fake promises of jobs abroad.
People wey talk say Libya, Italy no use you when they carry me on top water. 4 days now they lock me for inside house, no food, no water. I nearly die. Now God, when me heaven and earth, now save me. If you get 1 naira for Nigeria, you get junior 1, you say you no get papa, you no get mama, that make you come out. I beg go they do farm work. You better pass person wey enter road.
Don't accept to travel to Europe through the Sahara Desert. You may be walking into slavery. Don't be a slave.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Thanks for staying. A waste truck with a known registration number has plunged into the Lagos Lagoon in Ward Iyanoworo. Reports by the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, reveals that while in motion, the tires burst and it veered off the bridge. Fortunately, the two occupants of the truck were rescued alive by the LASEMA's marine team. They have been provided with first aid treatment. Meanwhile, recovery of the ill-fated truck has already commenced. Gift Judge is standing by for sports update.
In women's football, after beating Chile by 2-1 on Monday at the ongoing FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup in India, Nigeria's Flamingos will now face USA on Friday in one of the quarter-final fixtures. To Taekwondo, the 93rd International Taekwondo Master Course, organized by the Taekwondo World Governing Body Kuki-1, has ended at the Indo Sports Hall of the National Stadium, Lagos. The 4-day program, which featured about 150 Taekwondo practitioners from 10 countries, provided the opportunity for them to get upgraded on the modern techniques in the sport and also be certified by the Taekwondo Grandmasters from Korea.
And how the coaches' capacity, and also put us at the same level like other masters and coaches. And our own masters too here in Nigeria also have the certificate that will defend whatever thing they are doing.
In Scrabble, Nigerian Scrabble players going for the African Championship in Zambia are expected to be on top form after featuring at the just concluded Grand Slam Championship, which ended in Lagos. The maiden edition of the 4-day International Grand Slam competition featured 28 players from 7 countries, including host Nigeria. After 24 rounds of games, 2015 World Scrabble champion Wellington Jigeri emerged overall winner.
The fact that we have a lot of international players here at the Grand Slam playing with the top 20 rated players in Nigeria, it says a lot.
Still on Scrabble, Nigeria's team to the 14th African Scrabble Championship left the country Tuesday for Zambia to take part in the competition. Team Nigeria, made up of 20 players and 3 officials, will be going to the tournament as defending champions and 12-time African champions.
We have a 100% opportunity of winning. Now, this same top 20 in the world, we are carrying 8 of those who are in the top 20 in the world for this same Africa Championship.
The African Scrabble Championship is slated for 21st to 25th of October 2022. The sports update, Gift George, NTA News.
And that's it on Panorama today. Do not forget that the fastest and easiest way to becoming a star is to connect with the NTA to stand against rape and rapists. I am Adeola Komiakere. Do have a splendid day.
Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News Model app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News Model app, your access to real-time information.
NTA Sports 24, where sports thrive. NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
There's just something about speed and simplicity, but that speed and simplicity can be deceiving when you get behind the wheel. 30-year-old Emily sent this text message to her husband: "I love you and I'll try to make you happy." Moments later, Emily was killed when her car slammed into the back of a tractor trailer. 18-year-old Miri was also texting when his car slammed into the back of a truck at 80 miles per hour. His final text was,
Driving and Facebooking is not safe. Haha.
You probably think that this thing can happen to you. You are not alone. 55% of young adult drivers say that it is easy to text and drive. 3/4 of the same young adults feel that they are really good texting behind the wheels. Reality is, they are all delusional. That quick look at your phone takes longer than you think. 5 seconds are really long. Imagine you're driving on the road and someone suddenly covers your face for 5 quick seconds like this. You will probably feel very lucky if you didn't crash. But you chose to take your sight off the road just like that anytime you're sending or reading a text. Texting and driving is fast becoming the leading cause of teens' death on the road world over, surpassing even drinking and driving. But if you think dying in a car crash is the worst thing that happens to you, I tell you it is not. You can survive after you've killed someone else. Imagine spending the rest of your life knowing you killed someone just because of a text message. Now imagine going to jail just because of text message. Still think it will never happen to you? Still think you're the special one? There are so many that have been found guilty of texting while driving. But you can make a difference, just like so many young people have vowed not to text and drive. Leave your cell phone alone while driving. If you must send a text message, pull off the road into a parking lot or anywhere that is safe.
It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
Is the network service of the NTA.
I am Jennifer Igwe. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Environment Matters. As Nigeria celebrates her 62nd independence anniversary, it is a good time for us to look at what we've done so far in the environment sector, pre-independence, during independence, and where we are now. We have made some remarkable strides, and whether we like it or not, even if we don't have a perfect scenario yet, but we've made progress, so stay tuned.
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale, our greatest threat in thousands of years. climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon.
At independence in 1960 and for much of that era, agriculture was the mainstay of Nigeria's economy, providing food, employment, raw materials for industrial sector, and generating the bulk of government revenue and foreign exchange earnings. Forestry development in Nigeria also began with reservation of forest lands in order to manage and maintain forest reserves.
Despite the fact that the environment was largely pristine, intact I must say, the then colonial government had the presence of mind and even the foresight to set up forest reserves across the country. These reserves were there to ensure that we managed our forest resources very well, in a sustainable manner. We are there to make sure that we did not destroy everything we had, even when some subnational governments turned them into revenue generation sectors, places. It also ensured that people practiced conservation. People recognized that those trees, the animals, were important. So that is at the pre-colonial times. They had the presence of mind to even establish parks in cities. They had cities that at that time were planned with villages and all. The sanitary workers were working, to ensure that people lived, decent lives. But compared to what we have today, even the rural communities at that time had their own traditional methods, traditional ways of cleaning up the environment, sweeping their spheres and their homes. And the forest inspectors even visited rural communities at that time.
Over time, however, the nation's forest cover has reduced drastically. Nigeria has lost about 96% of its forest due to deforestation.
Prior to independence, and for quite a few years after independence, our environmental protection in Nigeria was quite effective. For instance, the forests, and we had massive amounts of forest, were very well protected and nurtured. Trees would be harvested, but only the very, very old ones and the younger ones would be left to generate themselves for maybe another 25 years or so. Waste management was quite effective as well. But after the democracy sort of fell apart, then also the environmental protection started to diminish and things started to get very bad very quickly. In fact, things started to get so bad so quickly that Nigeria actually lost over 40% of our natural forest cover. We were a forest nation. That's one of the reasons why our flag is 2/3 green. Green, white and green. Because we were a green nation with massive amounts of wonderful tropical rainforest, mangrove forest, and of course, agriculture was the mainstay of our economy. Unfortunately, we haven't done very well since independence until quite recently. Things have started to improve. The Forestry Commission are being given a bit more support now.
Before 1998, there were no laws to regulate industrial pollution and hazardous waste in Nigeria. But the dumping of a large consignment of toxic waste from Italy in the port town of Cocoa in Delta State raised a national consciousness for such laws. Arising from the cocoa case, the federal government promulgated the Harmful Waste Decree 42 of 1988, which birthed the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, PEPA, under Decree 58 of 1988. The cocoa illegal waste dump also constituted a key factor in the creation of the Basel Convention.
The establishment of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency in 1988 and subsequently the Federal Minister of Environment in 1999. Was a landmark achievement. I can even say it was revolutionary with regard to environmental protection in Nigeria. You know, they remain what they are. I mean, the Ministry of Environment is what it is, a department of government, a ministry, a coordinating body with regard to environmental issues in this country, which I think they have done relatively well. But there are areas where they have to step up activity, especially in the areas of review of the various policies and laws guarding our environment in this country.
Although global warming was gathering momentum from the Western world as a result of their industrial revolution over time, Nigeria did not experience conspicuous havoc from it pre and during the independence era and years after. In recent times, however, the effects of climate change and other environmental factors are presenting unprecedented devastation. Tafawa Balewa Square in Lagos was where the Union Jack was lowered in 1960 and Nigeria's green-white-green flag reigned with pride. Then this whole area was a green field. It was called Racecourse. It was because the colonial masters used the place then for horse race. And over the years, a lot has happened. We've seen monumental architectural work here, and it has changed with a lot of things happening here. It is used for anniversaries, programs, and many people who even visit this monument will not even know the history behind it. But looking at the architectural work here, you can tell that during the independence and even years after it, the quality of works and building construction in that era and now maybe slightly different, especially with the many cases of building collapse that we've seen over the years.
Since our independence, we have been using the British building regulations that we got from them since 1937. That's what we have been reviewing. And the Britain in 1974, they saw that building regulation is obsolete. So they now restructured it. And by 1975, they had the first British national, building. They call their own regulation, first edition. And every 4 years, they review it. So as at the time when Nigeria now woke up, to start, that was 2005. We now started, that we need to have our own building because we are using, in Britain, they use 2 levels of 2 tiers of government. You understand? When, but our democracy, uses 3 tiers of government. That is in line with USA. Okay? So that's why we have it as, at the national level, it is called National Building Code. At the state level, it has to be state building regulation. State building regulation. Then at the local government level, we have bylaws, to support it. So that is the structure. So now, as at that time, we now said, that, okay, let us go. But in line, with, we have to now domesticate what we got from the Britain. And that is why we now said, okay, let us now redefine our own building code to come along with what we are used to. And we did a lot of research. We went to various international, building codes and all that. Then we came up, with the redefinition of what we call building industry. The building industry now, we say it has 4 processes in line with what is now known as the building in Nigeria National Building Code.
Curious about how government policies on healthcare are faring? Do you enjoy learning about the wellness concept and the many options available? Then watch Health Options on the NTA.
Mr. President has led by example. Take the COVID-19 vaccine. So somebody can say, oh, I woke up this morning, I felt some tingling in my hand, some weakness, my face was, I couldn't speak well. That's a warning stroke, and it shouldn't be ignored.
The carrots contains carotene. Tomatoes is a colored plant. It has carotene. Pepper has carotene.
50% of our diet should be green vegetables and fruits.
Join leading experts on both orthodox and alternative medicine for all the enlightenment you need for a healthier you.
Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Bobby Abdullah.
This is still Environment Matters. Nigeria's evolution has been inundated with series of environmental challenges, and the nation innovated strategic ways to deal with many of the issues that affected our nation, and still some of them are still affecting us. We created new laws, updated existing ones, created guidelines, regulations, and incentives for good environmental practices and sanctions for bad ones. And all these things were pushed by key agencies under the Federal Ministry of Environment in partnership with their development partners. Now, Onengie Fineface would give us more details on this. Onengie, over to you.
From independence to date, the environment sector in Nigeria has evolved in response to changing local and global environmental conditions. Initially subsumed in the Federal Ministry of Works, Federal Ministry of Housing and Environment, the Federal Ministry of Environment was eventually exercised from that of Lands, Housing and Urban Development and given a full-fledged ministerial status in 2008. This freestanding status enabled the ministry to pursue the vision of ensuring that Nigeria develops in harmony with our environment, and the mission to ensure environment protection and natural resources conservation for sustainable development. Through its various departments, the ministry focused on responding to environmental concerns ranging from climate change, desertification, land degradation and drought management, to environmental assessment, forestry, pollution control, and environmental health.
And for the first time, Nigeria had what we call National Hospital Contingency Plan in year 2003, April, when the Federal Executive Council approved it as a national document to manage oil spill incidents across board, just 1, 2, 3. Hitherto, there was a spill in 1998, the Mobile Idaho oil spill incident. There was no national hospital contingency plan in place. There was no NOSDRA in place. The oil spilled, the company was in charge of it by itself, and the oil drifted from Kwaribota area, Idaho, down to Badagry. You can see the length. Almost 2/3 of the coastline of Nigeria was covered at that time. But because there was no national hospital contingency plan, a national oil spill detection and response agency, when we had Bengal spill in year 2011, precisely December 2011, what did we have? Within 7 days, we were able to combat over 40,000 barrels of oil that spilled into the Atlantic Ocean.
Nigeria, to further strengthen environmental governance, became signatory to various regional and international treaties, protocols and conventions, including the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction, and several others committed to achieving a healthy and safe environment. Nigeria has over the years lived up to its commitments by implementing agreements through agencies in the Federal Ministry of Environment, including the National Biosafety Management Agency, Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, the National Park Service, National Agency for the Great Green Wall, the Environmental Health Officers Registration Council, the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, and the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency.
The development of 34 environmental regulations that we use to monitor what is happening in the environment. We have had a lot of convictions in the court of law for environmental violators. We also succeeded in undertaking enforcement actions for non-compliant facilities.
These agencies and departments, together with development partners, have led Nigeria's environmental governance programs in tackling ecological challenges ranging from droughts, desertification, and desert encroachment in the north, through gully erosion in the southeast, coastal erosion and hydrocarbon pollution in the south-south, the flood, poor waste management, air and chemical pollution across the country.
And another success, I can say, is we have launched EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. And this EPR is tailored towards achieving circular economy in Nigeria. We have also established the permitting systems where industries are required to abide by certain regulations before we issue the permitting to monitor emissions coming from them. And we also have the environmental audit system.
Amidst the array of successes recorded in the environment sector, the enactment of a climate change law stands Nigeria out in Africa as a nation determined to respond to the devastating impacts of climate change. This is in addition to the energy transition plan defining a clear path for the shift from fossil fuel to renewable energy in the country.
Before this bill was signed into law, activities or actions in tackling climate change were carried out inside the National Council on Climate Change, which is the main organ now, will be presided over by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and in his absence, the Vice President. So the point you have to note is that because of the seriousness that is associated right now with the issues of climate change, a high-profile organ like the National Council on Climate Change is very, very important.
Implementing the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP Environmental Impact Assessment Report on Ogoniland through the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project also stands out as a landmark success in Nigeria's environmental governance.
Taking bold steps for the cleaning up of Ogoniland, where you know that exploration of oil has devastated the people in that community. They cannot farm, they cannot eat, a lot of poverty going on there. But these governments, since the inception of this government, they've taken that bold step to launch a project of cleaning up Ogoniland, and they say ongoing. That one is a kudos, because it has been on paper, we will do. You know, Nigerian way of doing things, they will say, but they will not do.
When we talk of quality of work, the quality of work that is being done in Ogoniland today is very, very high. They go to the field, along with NGOs, because we don't want anybody to say, no, what they are doing there is abracadabra. NGOs come too, we take samples, NGOs go with some samples, we go with some, and then some are sent overseas. Go and analyze, then we compare and see. We have had to refer a number of contractors if we believe that you have not met the target that you are given. So you go back.
Current realities in the sector, especially the climate crisis, indicates that a lot more has to be done to achieve the mission of a protected, conserved, and sustainably used environment in the country.
They have beautiful legislation, but they are not walking the talk. Walking the talk is what I want the federal government to start doing, to walk the talk. If you go online, go everywhere, you see the beautiful document, they can speak very well, but in action, in doing it, implementation, who is supervising those areas, those implementation of those policies to ensure that people do the right thing?
The government sector can be better in Nigeria. What is wrong in Nigeria is just one thing. And I know this president addressed it when he was head of state. One thing, if we get over it, every other thing will fall in place. And what is that single problem? Indiscipline. No more, no less. It's indiscipline. What makes somebody to just take a hammer or a hacksaw to go and cut the pipeline? Is he crazy? It's indiscipline. What makes somebody to want to go and steal a commonwealth, all that belongs to everybody, including himself? He goes there to steal it for his own personal use. It's indiscipline. What makes somebody to see who is doing wrong and not reporting him? It's indiscipline.
At COP26 in Glasgow, Nigeria committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2060. This is alongside similar commitments, pledges and promises from the international community.
Nigeria is not looking to make the same mistakes that have been repeated for decades by others. We are looking for partners in innovation, technology and finance to make cleaner and more efficient use of all available resources to help make for a more stable transition in energy markets. Nigeria's commitment to a just transition is reflected in our ambitious energy compact, which includes the government's flagship project to electrify 5 million households and 25 million people using decentralized solar energy solutions. This is a major step towards closing our energy excess deficit by 2030.
COP27 in Egypt this year 2022, coming on the heels of Nigeria's 62nd independence anniversary, will serve as a great opportunity for the country to join the global community in presenting definitive action plans to promote the safety of the environment and natural ecosystems. Onengiye Fineface.
Harmony of biodiversity before birthing climate crisis and crime phases.
Dicey situation indeed, yet we carry on like a bull in a china shop.
On environment matters, we take the bull by the horns, comb the nooks and cranny of Nigeria.
Asking tough questions.
Examining challenges and opportunities.
Giving human space to the science, facts, facts, and global agreements. It's a call for action. Don't miss it.
Join award-winning environmental journalist Jennifer Igwe and other NTA Eco reporters for Environment Matters.
That's all we can take today on Environment Matters. And you can see that over the years we've made some progress and we're still on environmental protection. We'll continue to be on it. And hopefully our biodiversity ecosystem will improve and get better so that we will have something that we will bequeath to the next generation and they will remember us that we were green. And it's important to say this because right now, not just in Nigeria, but all around the world, we're just tilting to concrete jungles and forgetting the fact that greening the environment is crucial. So just like we have green, white, green in our flag, it is time for us to go back to the bases and ensure that we leave our environment green and safe. So until next week when another episode of Environment Matters comes your way, I am Jennifer Igwe.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News Model app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News Model app. No access to real-time information.
NTA Sports 24, where sports thrive.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues, accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
NTA, you can't be Deutsch.
Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. This is Africa 54.
Tunisian police clash with demonstrators protesting against President Kais Saied as public anger grows over fuel and food shortages. The United Nations says millions of people cannot afford to eat, while others are suffering malnutrition due to climate change and failing crops. And today we begin our profiles of the top 10 finalists in the Africa Digital Innovation Competition for African Startups.
Two rival Tunisian opposition groups staged a massive protest against President Kais Saied over the weekend. The groups denounced his moves to consolidate political power as public anger grows over fuel and food shortages. Paul Ndiho has more.
Thousands of Tunisians flooded the streets of Tunis, denouncing what they see as an overreach of power by President Kais Saied. Protesters are demanding accountability for the country's long-running economic crisis. Saied staged a dramatic power grab in July last year and later pushed through a constitutional amendment enshrining his one-person rule, which critics are calling a return to autocracy in the only democracy to have emerged from the Arab Spring. The National Salvation Front, a coalition of opposition parties, including the Islamist-inspired Ennahda that had dominated Tunisia's parliament before its dissolution by Saied, organized the protests.
This demonstration expresses our rejection of the political measures announced by Kais Saied and the upcoming elections, which will only strengthen tyranny and dictatorship in the country.
Tunisians are barely coping with soaring food prices and shortages of basic staples in recent weeks. Sugar, vegetable oil, rice, and bottled water have disappeared from supermarkets. Food is not the only thing in short supply, with the country also lacking energy resources.
There is no gasoline, no water, and no milk. All roads lack maintenance. Throughout the day, the president addresses, threatens, and curses us, calling us agents of colonialism and garbage. That's why we are more impatient than ever. It is time for him to leave and declare that he is helpless.
President Saied, who moved to rule by decree after shutting down parliament last year and expanding his powers with the new constitution, says the measures were needed to save Tunisia from years of crisis. However, critics and Western allies say his overreach of power is jeopardizing Tunisia's young democracy.
I came today to defend my country and our rights. Tunisia is bleeding, hunger and poverty. And we have nothing in Tunisia like petrol. You have to wait hours to buy petrol. What is this system?
Saied's opponents say his actions are undermining the democracy that triggered the revolution that ousted former autocratic leader Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali. Ennahda and the Free Constitutional Party, long bitter foes, are now focused on the struggle against Saied. In July, Tunisian judges went on strike for nearly a month, protesting Saied's decision to fire 57 judges on June 1st. The president accused them of corruption and protecting terrorists, charges that the Tunisian Judges Association said were merely politically motivated. Saied's move heightened accusations at home and abroad that it has consolidated one-person rule after assuming executive powers during the summer and setting aside the 2014 constitution to rule by decree. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
For more insight in Tunisia's politics, I'm joined live via Skype from Cyprus by Salahuddin Saturi, a research fellow at William & Mary Global Research Institute. Mr. Salah, welcome to Africa 54.
Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure to be on here. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So what seems to be the core issues that are bringing all this political upheaval that we're witnessing in Tunisia?
Yeah, so right about now, we're seeing massive shortages of food, water, bottled water, wheat, bread, petrol, and energy. You can see it in the neighbors in Algeria and Libya, and it's causing a massive strain on the economy, on the cost of living, and the standard of living of the people in Tunisia. And this coupled with a political crisis that's been going on almost for a year and a half now, as of July 25th, 2021, when Kais Saied started ruling by decree and took over and froze the parliament. So now we're seeing post the new constitution, which was put in place in July 25th of this year. We are seeing the people sort of getting fed up with this new and terrible living standard in this country. They're fed up with the new government. They're fed up with this new system of governments. They're fed up with not being able to go to the grocery store and get food, and their basic necessities not being met. So that's what we're seeing, a lot of frustration out of the Tunisian people.
But how did Saied wield so much power?
So Kais Saied came into power in 2019, and he was actually extraordinarily popular, having almost 75% of the vote in a runoff in the election, he was known as the RoboCop. He was a constitutional law professor, and he was a political outsider. So he was extraordinarily well loved. Throughout the COVID years, there was a lot of frustration, like in most countries, with the political system. But Kais Saied was able to avert a lot of that frustration due to COVID. When he ended up ruling by decree, freezing the parliament, putting many members of parliament in jail, trying them, and putting, for example, the member of the corruption corps in house arrest, and pretty much seizing presidential powers, hyper-presidential powers for himself, with the express intent to create a new constitution, which would have been put in place this year, which has been put in place this year. So this constitutional referendum was extraordinarily popular among many of the Tunisian public. You saw a lot of the opposition, which are now forcing these protests, the National Salvation Front, led by Najib Shabi, and Nahda, who is led by Rashid Ghannouchi, who are extraordinarily unpopular. Rashid Ghannouchi specifically has been blamed for political assassinations, which took place in 2013. Much of this has not been proven, but Rashid Ghannouchi is a main reason for Kais Saied's extraordinary popularity. But you still see this popularity dwindling as of after the COVID years. His popularity is dwindling, and I think these protests are showing that Kais Saied isn't as powerful and as untouchable as he was once portrayed to be.
Salah, thank you so much for your insight into Tunisia politics. Salahdin Saturi is a research fellow at William and Mary Global Research Institute. The Ethiopian government on Monday recommitted to peace talks over Tigray but did not address African Union appeals for a ceasefire, vowing instead to carry out defensive measures, including seizing airports and other federal facilities in the region. AU Commission Chair Musa Faki Mahamat is calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire as combat intensifies in the war in Tigray. Meanwhile, the International Rescue Committee says one of its workers was killed Friday in an attack in Tigray. The aid group says the worker was delivering life-saving humanitarian aid to women and children at the time of the explosion in the town of Shire. For more insight on the situation in Ethiopia, I'm joined by VOA Horn of Africa digital reporter Abraham Zere. Hello, Abraham.
Thank you for having me.
You've been following this story, back home, and what is the latest?
Right now, as we speak, Guterres made a statement regarding the conflict in Ethiopia. He says 13 million people have been affected due to the conflict in the war. The war resumed after relative peace for 4 months, resumed in August 24. Since then, TPLF and the federal government and the Eritrean government, which is also part of the conflict, have been accusing each other for inciting the conflict. Right now, millions of people have been suffering from because they couldn't reach them with humanitarian aid. The conflict is still going on.
So we hear the Ethiopian government expressing the desire for peace talks to end this conflict. We also hear the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front saying they're willing to talk. But also we see the airstrikes in Tigray. What are you hearing from political analysts about this double standard from the Ethiopian government committing to peace and still bombing parts of Tigray?
It's very conflicting. Like right now, for example, yesterday, Musa Faki said, parts should visit hostilities and come back for negotiation. The region accepted the offer. The Ethiopian government said we are ready to do the peace talks, but again they are saying we also are about to take the rice airports to facilitate humanitarian aspects, humanitarian aid. So it's conflicting, and each party is saying something in public and doing something else in private. So it's difficult to also gauge their commitment for peace.
Yeah, but do we even know if the proposed peace talks will still take place in South Africa? Do we even have a timeline for that yet?
Right now, we have with facilities with logistics, so they kind of cancelled it. And it showed many parts were not even involved. The Tigray says we're not involved ahead of time, so we didn't know about it, but they accepted it anyway. So it's very difficult even to say if it will take place soon even.
Generally speaking, what has this war done to your native country of Ethiopia?
In fact, I'm from Eritrea, which also affects both the countries. Right now, Eritrea is also involved in the war. It's kind of dashed hopes of the region. It's killing thousands of people, either through direct conflict or through hunger or lack of access to medication, especially in Tigray, Amhara, and Afar regions, and particularly Eritrea. So it's kind of affecting the region, the countries, and Africa at bigger.
Right. Thank you so much, Abraham.
Thank you for having me.
Abraham Zere is a digital reporter for VOA Horn of Africa. Chad's government says it is to receive 105 million grant from the World Bank to help prevent food crises and adapt to climate shocks. Severe drought followed by the worst floods in 30 years have led to skyrocketing food prices and left a record 2 million people acutely hungry, according to the United Nations. The grant from the World Bank's Food Systems Resilience Program in West Africa will directly benefit at least 600,000 people. As World Food Day was commemorated on Sunday, millions of people worldwide cannot afford to eat, while others are suffering malnutrition as a result of climate change and failing crops. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization says 80% of the world's poorest people live in rural areas, and they are the hardest hit by natural and man-made disasters. Across East Africa, 4.2 million people face serious food insecurity, according to the Arid and Semi-Arid Land Humanitarian Network. The FAO says it's a matter of filling the stomachs of children and stopping hunger. Sadly, nutrition is second, which means many more face malnutrition.
The reports and even the situation around is getting worse in the sense that we are looking at the numbers that we get in our facilities in terms of children who are malnourished. And this could be as a result of food insecurity occasioned by the drought situation. There's an upsurge of numbers. We are getting numbers increasing, unlike before.
This water pan was constructed by KWS in the way of reducing water shortage, but we are only depending on rains. And for the last, I think, 4 years, we have not experienced any. And you can see the area is very dry. So the people around here are suffering a lot.
Last year and this year, the climate changed. And when it changes, we prefer to use drip irrigation.
Humanitarian organizations are getting supplies to some of those who are in need, but they cannot meet everyone's needs. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has signed into law a bill criminalizing some internet activity despite concerns it could be used as a tool to silence criticism. The new legislation increases restrictions in a controversial 2011 law on the misuse of a computer. Earlier, I spoke to Alan Sempala Kigozi, head of legal services at Unwanted Witness, a digital rights group, and I began by asking him what the law entails.
It's a dark day, it's a dark moment for Ugandans. It's really unfortunate. The law really is superfluous. It wasn't needed. When Parliament definitely called for consultation, they invited us and we faced them. We gave them our opinion. Definitely we disagreed with the law because the law in its current state stifles freedom of expression. This law, of course, they hid behind ensuring the right to privacy that is enjoyed without any hindrance. But we told them there is already a law that caters for the right to privacy. We have a Data Protection and Privacy Act, and you won't expect any justice for citizens, especially those that are allegedly prosecuted under that act. So the act, as it is right now, the amendment is a very unfortunate act, and it's actually a dark moment for Ugandans, especially us who really fight for the right of freedom of expression and free speech.
Do you think that President Museveni was also sending a message to his son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who 2 weeks ago used Twitter threatening to use military force to capture Nairobi in 2 weeks' time?
Certainly not. Certainly not. That act was passed for opposition. Whoever challenges President Museveni, that many government supporters have gone away with a high level of impunity. They've done many heinous acts that really, and they've gone untamed. The president's son definitely, when he misused Twitter and misused the foreign policy of Uganda, he was promoted to a full general. So certainly that's not an act of a president who wants to, to regulate and pull his son to order.
Alan, as you said, nearly everybody uses social media, and in particular, the mainstream media. What's the reaction of Ugandan journalists?
Definitely, Ugandan journalists are disappointed. What this regime does is that it is increasingly going to rule by law and increasingly enacting acts or laws that are repressive and restrictive. When they were passing a law called the Public Management Order Act against political parties, many of the journalists saw it as that for political parties only and politicians. They went ahead and passed the NGO Act, the Non-Government Organizations Act, a very restrictive and repressive act for the works of, non-profit organizations. Now they've done the amendment of the Computer Misuse Act. It has come for journalists. So anyone who seems to fight for freedom of expression for Ugandans, or anyone who seems to advocate for any right in Uganda, or seems to push for a change in regime, they are going to bring those acts. So this might not be the last act they are going to do. They're going to bring. They will increasingly bring more acts to target any group they seem or they deem to be not in their support, or encouraging those who don't support them to use their platforms. So definitely, it's a very unfortunate. Act for journalists.
That was Alan Sempala Kigozi, head of legal services at Unwanted Witness, a Ugandan digital rights group. Still to come, protests in Iran rage into their second month after a woman died while in police custody. We'll be right back. In other news, the NBA has announced that Basketball Hall of Fame and Congo native Dikembe Mutombo is undergoing treatment in Atlanta for a brain tumor. In August, Mutombo appeared with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at an event in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where he founded a hospital in Kinshasa. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has imposed a lockdown on 2 districts at the epicenter of an Ebola outbreak, barring personal travel, ordering a night curfew, and shuttering public places. In Equatorial Guinea, President Teodoro Obiang Nguema is running for a 6th term. He has been in power for 43 years. Among the candidates he is facing is his former ally, Buenaventura Monse Asumu. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce's U.S. Africa Business Center is convening its first annual Africa Digital Innovation Competition for African startups. VOA is working as a media partner with the Africa Business Center on this initiative. Out of 17,000 candidates in 50 countries in Africa, the top 10 finalists have been decided. And for the next 2 weeks, we'll bring you a look at each one. We begin with Emadago Onekwe William from Nigeria, whose startup Valley Bee leverages tech to design and manufacture sensor-enabled beehives that help farmers monitor their bees remotely.
My name is Emadago Ogenekewe William. I am 23 years old and I am from Jos, Nigeria. I am the CEO and co-founder of Valley Bee. I and my team applied to the 2022 Africa Digital Innovation Competition because we saw the massive impact it will have in our product. We saw financial opportunity, the mentorship, and also the strategic partnership we can get from being part of this competition. Being one of the top 10 finalists in this competition means a lot to me personally and also to our startup, because this would give us the opportunity to showcase our work and our technology to the world. This would have a massive impact on the climate and also on local beekeepers. Our product is a smart hive that is IoT enabled and sensor enabled that constantly maintains the optimal temperature and humidity that bee needs to produce honey. With our product, farmers can increase their honey yield and actually have a great impact on their local family and also to the environment. Our project will have tremendous impact in the life of local farmers and beekeepers here in Nigeria and also in Africa, because we are producing a product that will help them increase their honey yield and also maximize their profit. And as a country like Nigeria imports over $2 billion worth of honey per year, we are empowering these farmers to cash in this market and also make the maximum of profit. Our project also have impact in the pharmaceutical and medical industry in that honey is a very important raw material for drug production. The first thing we'll do if we win this competition is to acquire more equipment and raw material to expand our business to 2 more states in Nigeria, Kaduna and Nasarawa states.
Amin has become the face of a human rights movement focused on ridding the country of the Islamic Republic. Images surfaced over the weekend of an infamous prison in Iran known for housing political prisoners engulfed in flames. Meanwhile, the White House continues to pledge its support for demonstrators. VOA's Arashar Basadi has more.
Flames and smoke rise from Evin prison in Tehran. Details remain unclear as to how the notorious facility known for housing political prisoners in Iran caught fire. The prison blaze raged against the backdrop of what is now the 2nd month of sometimes violent street demonstrations in the Islamic Republic. It all started when 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died in the custody of Iran's morality police. The Islamic Republic released a video claiming to show Amini collapsing in a police station. Iran says the fall triggered a fatal heart attack, but her family disputes that account, telling VOA Persian Amini had no known heart troubles prior to her arrest. News of Amini's death sparked global outrage and demonstrations, with some Iranians burning their passports outside the Iranian embassy in Chile. The outrage continues to spark a worldwide movement opposed to Iran's theocratic government.
Iran has to end the violence against its own citizens simply exercising their fundamental rights. And, Mahsa Amini's death was... I've been doing foreign policy a long, long time. It stunned me what it awakened in Iran. It's awakened something that I don't think will be quieted in a long, long time.
Meanwhile, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who at first said he was heartbroken by Amini's death, has since turned to blaming the United States and Israel for sowing dissent in the Islamic Republic. He says protests won't destroy the country's foundations. But Iranians keep sending videos to VOA showing widespread demonstrations, with some burning banners of Iranian officials. One recent video captures voices chanting from the rooftops in Tehran, "Death to the dictator," a popular call against the supreme leader. Some jailed at the smoldering Evin prison are known to be dual nationals of Western affiliation. The State Department says it's working with Swiss partners to secure their release. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.
"24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet, and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. You are armed with a machete and a gun.
See, I am angry and I can't even contain it. See.
Oh, my guy, calm down, calm down.
See, Oga, I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. I have to retaliate for what they've done at our own place. They cannot eat their cake and have it now, never.
If you destroy their business here, and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold?
See, what you're saying is correct. But I'm still angry.
Best way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity,
my people, let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters.
for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Welcome to Africa, the land of innocent civilization.